Blessing to have her. Let me ask you this question. What did the Department of Justice say concerning juvenile court? First, again, thank you for your hard work on this.
Well, I'm just glad I was there at the right place, in the right time, and had enough of God's grace to be able to do it. But let me just say, the Justice Department, say this first, was the report they issued was a scathing report. I couldn't articulate all of the horrors of juvenile court, but the Justice Department got it all. Well, as far as violation of constitutional rights of children presented at this detention, that means those children brought to detention, and those children presented to the magistrates. They didn't go into all of the areas of the complaint. They sort of narrowed their investigation and focused on children, the constitutional rights of children. They found that juvenile court violated the constitutional rights of children, lack of due process, lack of equal protection, no protection against self-incrimination, no protection against self-harm, and it goes on. It gets worse down the line. But another thing that they said that our audience needs to really be cognizant of and remember is that juvenile court was found by the Justice Department to treat black children 6 times worse through every phase of juvenile court, from detention to probation counseling, even to an adjudicatory hearing. Black children fared worse than white children. This is in the report.
Because the language, and I'm going to read it, it says the agreement also requires the juvenile court to take steps to reduce racial disparities among similarly situated juveniles in different stages of the juvenile justice process. That's just what you said.
That's just what I said, but even in another report, it's even plainer. It's even plainer. They actually say that black children are treated worse. So I think that was in that report that was issued April 26th, the very first one. But it also showed in that April 26th investigative report, and they came here and investigated in 2009 through 2010 and 11, and they found one of the things that's very shocking: some of the laws that we had on the books regarding juvenile procedure were unconstitutional.
But before that, because I think you had asked me how did I was actually in grad school for computer science at Cal State Fullerton. And I was sort of like in between. I was trying to learn how to write, still engineering, but the passion for it was just totally gone. I mean, it just wasn't there. The career now felt like a job. You know what I mean? And we hate to go to a job every day. You know what I mean? And I went, because remember, I had an exam, midterm, and you have to make a B to stay in grad school. You have to have at least a B.
I remember those days.
Oh, yeah, man. And what I did was to tell myself that I was moving on, was I had this big exam and I didn't study. Because if I committed to it, that meant that I wasn't about to change. I was going to keep on the same path that I was ready to move away from. And but what I did was I didn't study, but I went in and I did just enough of the work to get a passing grade. That was it. I mean, if it was like 15 problems, I did 4. I didn't even look at the rest. And I remember I turned the paper over and I sat there and I was like, wow, this is it. Because I knew I wasn't coming back. I mean, really, I just looked around at people. It's like, wow, this is it. I'm moving on into something unknown. I'm afraid. But I'm going that way. And I turned it over, and I walked over, and I gave it to the teacher. I turned around, walked out the door, sunny California, looked up at palm trees and clear blue sky, well, smog skies, and just knew I was done. I didn't check for the grade. if it was sent to me, I don't know. I just never looked back. And I had to, here's the thing, is a lot of people, we want to move forward and make change, but we don't want to give up anything because you're used to material things. So I had to, you know, from the condo and out in the burbs, I went and got an apartment in the hood. The nice car became a hoopty. So because my first thing is I'm doing something different. Everything has to be less. I got to bring my expenses down. I don't care what you think. You know, and I've always been that way. I mean, you don't pay my bills, so you're not buying my clothes. So if you don't like what I'm wearing, here's my sizes. Bring it to me. All right. You don't like what I'm driving? All right. Drop the keys off. All right. With the pink slip, and we good. But this is me taking care of me. You know, I've never been one to look to my left again. I'm not competing with you. I'm not competing with you. I'm doing me. You know, I'm doing me to my best ability.
Pastor White was born in that community. Pastor White is pastoring in that community. Pastor White knows that community. Pastor White's a Carver graduate. So I thought it was best for him and Mr. Barbic and all of the persons involved to have dialogue here at Black Thought about the issue of Carver High School and how it fits in this new equation with the ASD. So I'm going to yield at this time to Pastor White and the Brother Lee, kind of shape for us what you see. And also, one of the things I want you to do is talk about, you probably don't have time to talk about all of the plan, but you all have come up with a comprehensive plan on how the high school can be saved from closure. And then after that, we can talk about, Mr. Barbic is here, perfect person to talk to, about what it would mean and what may be some of your positive and or critiques of the school going in the ASD. So I'm going to yield to you.
Thank you, Pastor Hutchinson. Glad to be here with you guys. We've met early on in the week, first time meeting you. Let me say, first of all, you are familiar with some of the situations that we've been dealing with as it relates to Carver, and Mr. Lee is going to elaborate just a moment. I know we don't have time to go into all that we've done. We've been meeting almost all year. As a matter of fact, maybe 5 months ago, we gave a proposal to the now superintendent, and we were hopeful that this would be disseminated throughout the board and they would look at it. And when we left him, we were pretty sure that, hey, this is what they need, because there's been dialogue going on, but not with us. There have been meetings, but not with us. So they've been meeting about us and for us, but without us. Mr. Lee is going to just briefly go over some of the things that we propose to save Carver and actually save money for the system. We know there are problems, but when we can come up with solutions to problems, okay, we should say, let's put this aside and let's work with it. That did not happen. Now, what you guys are doing in the state is what you do. So you're not the enemy, and we need to come together and say, okay, why are we here? And why did we not bring resolve early on based upon the information that we have? So just briefly, Mr. Lee, he's done an awesome job and putting together stats and figures.
Yeah, they asked initially for a proposal, and I think that's more of a political move. You ask for a proposal, and normally the proposal doesn't come. So what we did, we offered two proposals. Both proposals asked for enlargement of the attendance boundary. There was a school closed, Southside High, about 6 or 7 years ago, okay? When they closed Southside High, we expected to get part of that attendance. We got less than 5% of that attendance. All of that entire area was shifted east to Hamilton, right, which of course didn't help the utilization rate at all. Okay, that was the first issue. Second issue is the long lines that were initially drawn all of a sudden dipped toward the west, which further reduced the utilization rate. The two proposals we gave both asked for an adjustment in the boundary to assist us with the enrollment issues. The first issue also showed them how By increasing that boundary, it would take care of the utilization rate and take care of the cost effectiveness of the school. We came in with a second proposal showing that, okay, if you don't want to increase the boundary, then let's have, like Harvard used to be, have a middle through high school at one facility. They were talking about closing one of our elementaries also. Instead of closing the elementary and moving them to another elementary, which would take 24, Shelby County schools have 24 schools. 24 offices in the elementary they're talking about taking them to. We discussed this with the superintendent. He wasn't even aware of that. 24 offices have to be moved out of Florida, Kansas before the consolidation can occur between the two elementaries. So we suggested having a middle to high school at the high school building and put both elementaries into the middle school area so that when the demographics change, the population change, or they increase the boundaries, that the middle school is still there. Okay.
Mr. Barbeck, we are grateful that every month you take time out your schedule, you come through Black Thought, you let us know what's going on, and we're most appreciative. And you also put on your Teflon suit. So if there's some challenging things that come up, and you know some of the things that have come up over the past few months, you are not hesitant to answer. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being here.
Sure.
So,
thanks for the opportunity.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
that.
Talk to us. Well, first of all, I'm going to give you the august privilege of introducing the young lady sitting to your left and tell us her role, and then you can open up and talk about the latest developments in the ASD.
Sure. So with me is Malika Anderson. Malika is our Chief Portfolio Officer, and she's in charge of lots of things. Most importantly for right now, and probably most relevant to this conversation, is her team leads our charter authorization process and also leads our school matching process. So as you know, and as probably many of your viewers saw yesterday, we released a list of ASD eligible schools that we'll be looking to bring into the ASD for the 14-15 school year. And so all of that work is led by Malika's team, and we're fortunate to have her on the ASD team and working here in Memphis to make sure that we're providing as many great options for kids and families as possible.
Okay, talk to us about the schools that are being considered for the ASD and kind of paint the picture of what's going on.
Sure. So maybe taking a quick step back. So we've talked about this several times when I've been on the show. The ASD was created to serve what we call the priority schools, which are the schools in the bottom 5%. And this was all part of the Race to the Top application that the state won several years ago. And it's basically an initiative to try and take the lowest performing schools in the state, the schools that are consistently the lowest performing, and try and improve student performance. And there's 85 schools that make up that priority list. 68 of those schools are here in Memphis. And what we've been doing over the last 24 months is working with Shelby County to either have those schools in the ASD as a possible treatment, if you will, to push the schools up, to have the schools in the I zone as another possible way to improve those schools. And we're at a point now, which it's actually pretty interesting, of all the 68 schools, when we finish this matching process this year, every one of those schools will either have been in the I zone, in the ASD, or making solid 8 to 10 point gains.
Okay.
And so in a pretty short order, we've actually, working with the district, developed a plan for every single one of those schools, which we would have never been able to do on our own, and the district would have never been able to do on our own. So I think it's a great example of our ability to work together and spread our resources across schools has allowed us to put a plan in place for every one of those schools.
That kind of leads me to the role of the black politician. We kind of hinted at the role of the black church. We can go back and visit that. But now, Newark is a black power base in New Jersey. Memphis, black power base in Tennessee. Chicago, black power base in Illinois. We have all these black power bases. We have all these black politicians. But it seems like the issues that beset our communities keep getting worse. So I'm just curious. I have my own critique. I'll probably share it as we talk, but I'm just curious as to how you see the role of the black politician. And let me meddle a little bit here. I read some of your pieces when you started talking about Cory Booker, who's now running for Senator of New Jersey. He'll probably get the seat, but the bottom line is Newark has shifted some, but it really hasn't shifted that much. Because as you know, I'm a native New Yorker, so I'm well acquainted with Newark, and some of the same things people were saying in '67 after the riots are some of the same things that people are saying now. So kind of share with us your thoughts on this issue.
Well, I think anybody who we elect, black, white, Latino, Asian, their job is to serve the public. And I think where we often fall short is holding these people accountable. So we now have had decades of African American leadership, particularly in most of our large urban centers. And suffice that it has been challenged because we have had this great economic shift where we've had jobs that have disappeared that have never been replaced. Those jobs, the manufacturing jobs, have gone overseas. You began to see sort of the white population just desert cities overnight. So you have situations like Detroit, a city that's in bankruptcy. But I think where black leadership fails, I think black leadership fails on a couple of levels. Number one, it fails because it doesn't believe that it can serve its city and the black community at the same time. And it's not a zero-sum game. You have politicians who will tell you, well, I'm not the black mayor of such and such city. But you are the mayor, and you do represent black constituents. So you should be fully capable of being the mayor as well as meeting the needs of the African American community. And when I hear that from black elected officials, you know, I remind them that, particularly in places like New York and Boston, during the wave of European immigrants, you know, Irish elected officials never forgot about their community.
Exactly.
Neither did Italian elected officials.
Or Jewish officials.
Or Jewish officials. We seem to be the only group that once we're elected, we feel as though we have to abandon our community, or abandon our power base, to be truthful. And so I think that's a real problem. And then the other problem, I believe, is that as voters and as citizens and as residents, we too easily grant elected officials celebrity status. They're not celebrities.
Exactly.
You know, we treat them like Hollywood stars. They're not. They're elected to run government. And if they don't do a good job, it's our responsibility to remove them from office. But what we tend to have is sort of this fawning over elected officials. And that has created some real problems to the point that we even look the other way when we know folks are corrupt.
I agree.
You know, we've got folks who are in office who we know are corrupt, who have exhibited a pattern of corruption, but we refuse to move on them out of some warped sense of racial solidarity. These folks aren't looking out for us.
Well,
they don't look out for our best interests, so why are we protecting them?